All right, and we are officially going live here. Anticipating that the live stream is working perfectly without any glitch, without any trouble. It is 8 p.m. here Eastern Standard Time, and it is a fantastic day. So looking forward to seeing what we can do with this stream and actually covering some pretty amazing topics this evening. And so if we're glitching, if we're lagging, we are going to have some major issue here. All right, so it looks like we're getting a little bit of video lag. It looks like my fix did not fix. So what we're gonna do is keep this as live as we can until we figure out how to correct the lag that we're getting here. So anyhow, let's wait, give people a moment to bounce in here. Looks like some things definitely changed. What we're gonna do is do this. Bam! We're just gonna hide the we're gonna hide me in the background, and we're gonna talk with a nice image in the here. So I think that's how we're gonna do it tonight. We're not gonna worry about the video, and we're going to have a great conversation. I wish I could freeze that image right now and use that as a thumbnail. That would be perfect. So there we go. All right, let's see who's bouncing in here tonight. Let's hope that this doesn't really have a major impact on what we plan on sharing either. So let me see here. Let me see if this is exactly where I need it to be. Boom. There we go. All right. See, I just lost everyone that had bounced in here. So it looks like I'm streaming. Maybe I'm getting some echo feedback here. So anyhow, let me know if you guys are able to bounce in. Let me know if you're able to see me. Let me know if there's any lag. So far it looks like it's great. There's Richter. Richter, what's up, man? Hey, so it is 8 p.m. It looks like we're able to stream without any lag. So that's a positive. The video was lagging, so therefore we're going to continue without any video. We are just going to go image only for this evening. And as we do that, I'm actually bouncing around here, and I'm trying to figure out exactly how we're going to share the screen and discuss some of the things that we need to discuss this evening. So anyhow, let's see who bounces in. Danny, what's going on? Yeah, there's Sincerely George. How are you? Good to have you on the stream tonight. We are going to go over. So anyhow, let me pull up this other tweet that or not tweet, but it was feedback on a previous video. So actually, the video was called "Ripple XRP a Scam: A Rebuke of Forbes Jason Bloomberg." So this was a video that I made a little while back, and earlier today, Andre Smith actually responded to the video, and as part of the response to the video, it actually prompted me to read the complaint against Ripple and then start analyzing it. And actually, one of the final questions that Andre Smith asked me was, have you read the complaint? And sent me a link to the complaint at Stanford EDU. And so I read through the filings document, went through the whole thing. And so I pulled it up here because that's what we're going to actually talk about tonight. So let me start this off. I'll prompt this. This is Andre Smith. This was, again, a response to what I had, a previous video. And he said, I've spent some time reading the complaint filed by Ryan Coffey, and the argument appears to be that the price of XRP is dependent solely on the technical, entrepreneurial, and managerial efforts of the defendants, Ripple Labs, and their agents and employees. He goes on to say, I'm guessing the Ripple attorneys are going to counter with, that may be true, but owning XRP does not give anyone a vested interest in the company. And then his final statement is, this is Andre Smith. He says, not being a business attorney, I'm not sure which side has more of a case, but I'm interested to see how it plays out. And then he asked me if I've read the complaint. So I did respond to him. My response was, I've read the complaint. It outlines the claims of the plaintiffs. These individuals invested in a volatile speculative investment at a point the entire market was being pulled by FOMO. When the market turned down, they lost money. It's an interesting argument for them to make, but there are many facts leaning towards XRP not being a security. Buying a digital asset isn't a stock. There are no expectations of gain from the work that Ripple is doing. The bumps in price were all based on the FOMO at that time. Now it will all be about utility. The market trends up and down regardless of what Ripple does. Their software does have XRapid, which does use XRP. I believe that we will see more consistent trends upwards on price of XRP with the increased use of XRP through XRapid, as well as through other platforms like XRP Tipbot, Coil, etc., etc. So that was my response. He followed that up with, if Ripple Labs were to file bankruptcy, what would happen to the price of XRP? So that's what we're going to get into this and talk a little bit more about this. I think it's really important. So in theory, he says, the ledger would still be there operating independently, but it could just stagnate. So I definitely want to get some feedback from everyone bouncing in here. I think this is an important topic at this point. I know it's been discussed really to, maybe to infinitum. I don't know that for a fact. I know I've talked about it before, but I do think that it's relatively relevant to bring it up and to have another discussion about it, especially considering the fact that many of us have been out there helping to push for regulatory clarity in this space, given that in a couple weeks, Congress will be coming back out of recess, going back into session. And with that, as they go back into session, this is really a time to begin and ramping up additional pressure on Congress, on our local representatives, to start pushing for, that's right, regulatory clarity. So let's see here. Who do we have in the conversation? We have very few viewers on so far. We've got 15 people in the room. It is just a little bit after 8 o'clock on a Monday evening. We have, let's see, Spanish Fly bounced in here. And we've got Ripple XRP, the preacher. So is XRP a security? That's a great question. So we're going to go through. I'm going to pull up this complaint. And I don't know how many people actually took the time to read through the complaint. I thought it was, it was kind of interesting going through it. It is a year old, so it was filed a year ago. But again, I think it's so important to arm ourselves with as much information on both sides as possible, especially as we're going to the table to start pushing our congressional representatives for regulatory clarity. We're not pushing for just anything. We're not pushing for them to say, hey, digital assets are great. We're pushing for regulatory clarity. So again, it's important for us to understand the different dynamics. So hopefully you guys can give some feedback, some comment as we go through this. So Matt Richter was a BTC Maxi, and I wouldn't doubt it, but at the same point. So we're going to go through that here in a moment. I do want to give a shout out to Bubba Shipes for coming on last night, doing another great evening of trivia. I thought the trivia that we did last night was spot on. We'll do another evening of trivia next week, next Sunday. So that will be, I think that'll be great also. And also wanted to just acknowledge sincerely George for really putting some fantastic streams together in the morning. I think you're doing a great job. And, I guess I got to throw this announcement out now because, we're a couple weeks into September. And I'm going to, strongly considering this, but I believe I'm going to start ramping down the HODL review. So it's been a great run with the HODL review. But with everything that has been great, things end up coming to an end. So I'm looking at ramping this down with much better things to come in the near future. So I just want to throw that out there now, and we'll keep pushing forward. So anyhow, DNI, these lawsuits will drag on for years, one after another. All large companies get sued endlessly. It's crazy. I wish companies would counter sue for damages. Yeah, that would be great. DNI, I think, that's a really, really great point. I think that it is important for us to identify especially when you see not just the lawsuits, but I think, just negative publicity in general. When you throw negative publicity out there, and then it does cause some form of damage. Obviously, the lawsuits also do have negative impact, and lawsuits can go on for a long time. When we get into this complaint, I think one of the things that we're also going to see is that it's not just a concerned citizen of whatever it might be that's really looking into what's best for individuals. It looks like someone that was very bitter because they made a bad investment decision on their own. And so they made that investment decision at a certain point, and then obviously it didn't go their way, and they lost a couple bucks, but that's the name of the game. If you're going to invest in whether it's a volatile investment or not volatile investment, you're still going to have the same type of impact when you have a loss. So XRP Carolina, good to see you in. Let's see here. All right. So let me see if I can pull this off. Let's see if I can get our shared screen up without any issue. And then I need to shut off the video, decrease that, and here we go. All right, I think we can pull this off. Let's see here. All right, so I'll monitor over here, and then we'll see if we have any issues. So this was actually filed May 3rd of 2018, and yes, DNI, this is the guy who lost about $500, spending thousands, and just the overall cost is going to be relatively staggering, if you think about it. So that is, and that's really the gist of it, is that, somebody really made, some interesting decisions here, on the back end of a minor loss. And so here we go, so that's where it leaves us, is that you have some individual that's a little bit bitter. So here we go. Ryan Coffey versus Ripple Labs, so as we get into this, a lot of this is just nonsense in the beginning. We need to dig down a little bit to get to the meat of it, to the summary. So here we go. So, and it's interesting too, because he's not filing, obviously not just filing on behalf of himself. So plaintiff Ryan Coffey is actually filing on behalf of others similarly situated plaintiff. So I think that's an important point to make right there. He's doing it on behalf of others, so not just himself. And the complaint is against who? That's right, Ripple Labs is one of them. So we got Ripple Labs, and it's wholly owned subsidiary XRP2. So we got to identify that. And they're also going after Ripple Labs CEO Brad Garlinghouse. And so again, this is a year out, and we've probably read and heard so much about it. But I really think that it was important, again, at this point, to really pull this up and start digging into it a little bit more. So, hey, XRP Bananas, how's it going? Good to see you on. Glad you made it. I just want to, just real quick, as just a call of order, I guess, for business purpose here. Anybody who's coming in, if you guys are new, why don't you hit the subscribe button if this is if you're interested in following and hearing more content like this. hit the thumbs up. Make sure we get a bunch of thumbs up on the video, and then keep throwing in comments. It's great. XRP Bananas, what's up, man? Real good to see you on. It's been a while. Got Danny Torres in, Spanish Flies in. So we got a lot of great people that have just bounced in to join us. All right, so let's look here. Summary of action. Now, this is a securities. Now, this is a class action lawsuit on behalf of all investors who purchased the Ripple tokens. Now, the issue that I have here, once you get into any type of class action lawsuit, is that, and D and I brought it up, this is by a guy who lost maybe $500. So is he bitter? Did he, obviously someone didn't go and search this one individual out. Did he already, obviously, do you go into it with the intent of losing money? Obviously there was a ton of FOMO and big, price spikes at the time. So I doubt that he went in there with the intent of losing money. But you see this a lot, when someone loses a little bit of money and they feel like somehow they were swindled in, like someone else coerced them into going through the process of buying XRP. Now, if you can think about, when this guy bought in, he bought in when it was like $2.70. Now, think about that period of time. We're talking about January 6th of 2018. So January 6th, 2018, which was his buy-in period, and you'll see it will get into that where he bought in. There was tons of FOMO. The price was going up. It was going up, and I think he ended up selling. Maybe he bought at 280 and sold at 170, whatever it was. But the thing is that at that time, I remember buying in. I had to go to Bitstamp to buy. It wasn't so easy. You had to buy Bitcoin on Coinbase. You had to move your Bitcoin over to Bitstamp. Then you could buy on Bitstamp. It wasn't like you could buy it on Coinbase. You couldn't go to Uphold. You couldn't go, and it wasn't a simple process. And so here's an individual. He went through this whole process of investing in digital asset, finding XRP, investing in XRP. You can't tell me that somehow he was coerced into buying it. He wasn't tricked into buying it. You could say the same over Bitcoin, over Ethereum, over anything. The concept behind this lawsuit is irrational to start. The point, though, again, as we get into regulatory clarity, is to really clarify and try to identify whether or not XRP is a security or not, and also then, trying to read into the fact that more and more banks are joining up with XRP, with Ripple, with RippleNet, the RippleNet solution. We had a tie-in with part of this lawsuit from a year ago was old news. They talked about the agreement with R3. They tried to bring every possible bit of negative news that there could be to try to, create some sort of a slant of imperfection about the company, about the individuals in the company, to really show that they would lack sincerity. And they also tried to build a case in this complaint that in actuality somehow they were led to believe that by the growth of Ripple, the company, they were somehow going to see a direct return of the digital asset. Now, again, if you go back to that period of time with the hype and everyone's like, how do you buy? How do you buy? Look at what's happening to Bitcoin. They wanted you to go on the news. And even, I forget what channel it was, maybe somebody remembers, they said, how do you buy XRP? And they go into the whole process of actually how to buy XRP. And I thought that was all around that period of time. So again, there was, obviously a bunch of hype in general, but, based on, as you dig into this complaint, it's just so, obviously there's an ulterior motive. So here we go into, right off the bat, one of the things that they try to target. Now, why are they trying to target this? Like, what sense does this have in the grander scheme of things? What's their point? So here we are. So they bring up, unlike cryptocurrencies such as Bitcoin and Ethereum, right, which are mined, right? They're mined, okay? So they're mined. Yes, we know that. But unlike those, and they're validating transactions, for validating transactions on the network. This is their point. This is how they start off their complaint. We're still on page 1 of the summary. They say 100 billion XRP were basically brought into existence, right? They were created, oops, hang on. They were created from thin air. This is their claim by Ripple Labs. So now the question here is obviously, and this was in 2013. So it's interesting because right off the bat, they're going after and they're trying to target the credibility of Ripple by explaining Bitcoin and Ethereum as a mined digital asset, as a mechanism for validating their transactions, as if at that point that creation is any different in terms of the end result, which is a digital asset, is any different than the mechanism here, where yes, they did establish the 100 billion XRP, and it's interesting. So here you have the generation of a digital asset, and then you have the purpose of the entire solution, which is the entire infrastructure of utilizing the interledger protocol, utilizing the RippleNet solution. If you think about and you read into everything that, if you look at the XRP ledger, the technology that went into the back end of it, and the fundamentals of what it's meant for, the purpose, which again, if you think about the pre-existence of Bitcoin, it's mind-boggling. As they try to get into and rationalizing this lawsuit, XRP Carolina say a frivolous lawsuit just to bring down the worldwide adoption of XRP, and really, it's amazing to me because the lawsuit wasn't filed that long after they actually lost their money. So it was about 6 months, right? So it was actually filed in May. They lost their money in, I want to say January or February, and we're going to dig down there. So January, February, and then a few months later, they're filing this lawsuit, and they're bitter. And they put all of this case together in with all this detail, for what? Again, what was the key purpose? So, and it was still called Ripple back then, exactly. Spanish Fly, good point. It was still called Ripple. Everyone referred to it as Ripple. It had a different logo. It had everything. Let's see. Omar Kaufman, what's going on? Hey, it's good to see you on. Haven't seen you on for a while. We haven't seen XRP Bananas for a while either. So, all right. Oops. I'm trying to use the scroll here. Okay, so defendants have since earned massive profits by quietly selling off its XRP to the general public. So they're going into, so again, they're looking at the overall fundamentals of a digital asset, but does any of this have to do with the fact that they lost money, and they only lost an insignificant amount of money? It's kind of interesting to me. So, then they get into the IPOs. So defendants have since earned massive profits by quietly selling off XRP to the general public in what is essentially a never-ending initial coin offering. So that's not really the case, but they do like to refer to it like that, like the better-known IPO and an ICO. So it really never was an ICO, like many of the other ICOs that were launched, specifically for that purpose. Here we have digital assets sold in exchange for legal tender. Okay. And that happens on a regular basis. These tokens generally give the purchaser various rights on the blockchain network and resemble the shares of a company sold to investors in an IPO. Wait a minute. What are they saying here? These tokens generally give the purchaser. So, wait a minute. Oh, okay. So, like better known as an IPO and an ICO, digital assets are sold to consumers in exchange for legal. These tokens generally give the purchaser various rights on the blockchain network and resemble the shares of. No. See, this is wrong. They're not sold, and they're not giving you shares in the company. So this is wrong. This is you're not getting various rights on the blockchain network. What are the rights that you're getting by owning a Bitcoin or an XRP? You're not getting any rights on the blockchain network. And it does not resemble the shares of a company sold to investors in an IPO. Unfortunately, these ICOs have become a magnet for unscrupulous practices. That's fine. You want to single out a few and they've been targeted by the SEC already. They've already gone after them. So it's interesting digging into this like a year out. We're almost, just a little over a year out. But it's so crazy. As you look into this, it's amazing. I mean, again, this is a year ago. Think about how much information has been passed, and how many things that we've discussed over the past year. So thank you, XRP Carolina. I didn't see what L. Richard posted, but appreciate that. XRP Bananas. Let's see. Yep, it's a joke how long this lawsuit crap is being pushed. Definitely a little ways out there. They spent a lot more than $500 to get a lawyer. So the question is then, did they spend the money, or did the lawyers potentially see a huge pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, at the end of this lawsuit, thinking that it was an easy case? So again, you go back a year ago, and we didn't have too much activity yet in the global space. We hadn't had any real discussion, anywhere at that point. Mike Sorella, what's up with the headline? Headline, just to get people to start thinking, I guess. So the point was, I pulled it out of. I pulled it out of this complaint. This is the complaint filed by what's the guy's name? Ryan something. I don't know. I forgot his name already. The complaint filed by Ryan Coffey. So we're just reviewing this. This is Mike. This was the complaint filed back in May. Just the title for the video. But the point is, I pulled it out of this. This whole complaint, their whole claim of this complaint is that Ripple is a security. And again, this is the complaint filed by Ryan Coffey. Lost about $500 trading XRP. Back in February of 2018, was bitter, went to an attorney and tied up. And there's multiple cases after that. There were a number of complaints, 4 of them actually. And this is kind of where it started from. So, that's all, I wanted to get into it, to kind of dig through this, because that's the whole point of this complaint, is that XRP is a security. And there's holes all the way through it. Again, this is from a year ago. So obviously they could maybe refresh this and put this out again. Who knows? Yeah, Mike, exactly. I'm with you on that. I agree. I definitely agree that that it's not a security. And I've made other videos specific to that, so that's why, I wanted to get into this, and specifically discuss this, because I thought, why not? The whole purpose of this little exercise tonight really, has to do with the fact that, again, in 2 weeks, we're going to have Congress going back into session. We just came off of a number of I don't want to say cases, but we just came off of Facebook going in front of hearings, Facebook going in front of Congress and Senate. We've had multiple hearings over the about a month ago, and then we see Congress taking a recess for a month. Things cooling off a little bit. Now the point is that we're really pushing for and looking for regulatory clarity, and if we're going to have a discussion on regulatory clarity, and you also want to have a discussion and support a digital asset that is really, pushing forward with, full utility, so I think, it's important that, we each arm ourselves with enough information. Now, if you're going to invest in something, you better know, what you're invested in, and you better know what's happening, on the other side as well. And that's where, I never read through this complaint in full. So it was sent to me by this Andre Smith, sent it over to me earlier this morning, and I started reading through it, and I read through this whole complaint. It's 43 pages long, and as we get into it, you start seeing right off, and again, this is from a year ago, so, it's good. Let everybody get a little bit heated, because, I got this. I'm like, okay, it was from a year ago. But their whole point is that XRP is a security. However, there's enough evidence now a year out that if XRP was in fact a security, we wouldn't, Coinbase added XRP. I think that was a big step forward. We see, XRP trading in New York. New York is one of the stricter areas of trade, in the country. And then you've seen, specific, you have specific banks that have been adopting not just RippleNet, but we're also seeing it from a global perspective. We've seen other tie-ins with the discussion of moving into an XRapid platform. And we're seeing the end game, which is the integration of XRapid into the full platform. So, and now a couple of videos ago, we talked about MoneyGram. And I think that, MoneyGram is also a very, very important step in the direction of where things are going with Ripple or RippleNet as a whole. But again, I think it's so important because, as we go through this, there's DA. Yeah. How about your clickbait title being negative? It's not really clickbait because the whole purpose of this complaint that we're reading by Ryan Coffey, I think maybe it's important, to pull this out, but the complaint that was filed by Ryan Coffey in May, June of 2018 specifically claims that XRP is a security, and that's really the point. So again, now here he gets into, and we start talking about to increase the demand for XRP, thereby increase the profits it can derive by selling XRP. Ripple Labs has consistently portrayed XRP as a good investment. So now they get into this point where they start drilling into a lot of the different tweets or messaging that came out of Ripple in regards to what they expect. So they have expectation that result in a stable or strengthened XRP exchange rate against other currencies. So so for years they've been discussing the development. Now, if you also think about it, up to that point, and Legendary, you're right, so it definitely should be dismissed at this point. But up to that point, up till 2018, so we have like 3, 4, 5 years in already. 5 years of development. XRP grew pretty big leaps and bounds to the point when we're in that October, November timeframe in 2017, and XRP was sitting not far off of where it's sitting today at that 22, 23, 24 cent price point. And it had moved up considerably in 2017. So anyone who obviously got in early in 2017, 2016, obviously saw some pretty big gains. But at the same time, then we go into end of December, beginning of January, and you see the big spike of the entire market. So again, their case is that somehow there was a push by Ripple to get XRP into the hands of others, and they're enriching themselves based on that. Not that they're spending money to try to fuel up and build a space and build a solution, building a platform and helping banks migrate into a RippleNet solution. Now again, XRP wasn't created by Ripple; it was gifted over to Ripple, and there's you can get into a much deeper discussion on that part of it, but at the end of the day, when you look at the way they're building this case, the case is already a little bit incorrect, based on the initial complaint. So the anticipation, I would assume, is obviously they're going to make I would think they would make some adjustments to it. But at the same time, if they're going to continue forward with a case like this, and I'm not an attorney, so what do I know? I'm just reading their complaint, and trying to analyze it myself. And everyone, you guys can go and download this. You can find the Ripple complaint. It's public knowledge. It's accessible. So it's just interesting because again, this is a year out, and we saw a huge amount of FOMO. So the entire space was spiking. Why did they single out XRP to file against? and why in this entire, breakdown, when we go through this, did they single out the agreement with R3 trying to establish credibility when it was a business issue? And there were two sides to that business decision of not releasing the XRP to R3 at that point, and ever since then it's been settled, and now they're working together. R3 and Ripple, and R3 is added XRP as the first digital asset at the time to work with their Corda solution. So things get worked out, but they were trying to establish credibility. And here we have, let's see, Ripple executives also reported to have asked whether a $1 million cash payment could persuade Gemini to list XRP. Now, is that accurate? It's reported. It's amazing that this went into the case, so some of it's hearsay. Obviously, they'd have to prove it. Maybe not, because they're throwing stuff out there that could be, negatively is negative, and and some of that stuff, like D&I was saying in the beginning, you throw all these lawsuits out there, and who knows? And Jeff Rome, didn't FinCEN rule it as a currency? There's so many different aspects, of I guess ways to really look, or really think about when we want to consider whether or not XRP is a security or not. You could look at the SEC has really given decision on others, and so that's they've looked at ICOs, and they've gone after ICOs and made decision on whether or not the ICOs did in fact breach specific laws as it pertains to security law, so, and whether or not they were selling a security or not, and so now here they get into it, and it's interesting too, because I think when you read through the case and you read through case law, obviously you can just pull out the sections that you want to pull out. You don't have to look at everything, but yet really there could be more to it. So it's interesting too, because think about this. Think about how much time we've spent discussing the Token Taxonomy Act, right? Token Taxonomy Act, and look how they're applying the Securities Act of 1933, right? So they're applying the Securities Act of 1933. They're pulling out Section 2A1, whatever that is here, if we were to pull out and read through the whole thing, but they're pulling out, what is a security? Defined to include an investment contract. Okay? So now they're going to try to make a case that buying XRP is actually an investment contract. Yet there's other cases that bring the case law, like the Howey test. And so if you look through and you really dig into the Howey test, which we've done on previous videos, again, taking this from a purely non-legalese or lawyerly approach, but just reading into it and saying, okay, let's read it, try to understand it, and then apply it and see whether or not it applies or not. You can go back. We made a couple of videos on the Howey test. And so here, again, is the security just an investment contract, or should we move forward to the precedent that was set with the case, and I forget Howey, whatever. It was an Orange Grove in Florida, and that's from that point forward they made the determination on using that test to make a determination on other investments as securities or not. So here they are trying to make a case, but they're not really bringing that up. And that case was in like 1946, 45, 46, 47, somewhere in that time frame. Let's see. The SEC has made it clear that digital tokens such as XRP often constitute securities. So I think that as we see a year in, I think that that's not true. I don't even think it was true then. They definitely did not make it clear that digital tokens often constitute securities. That's definitely not the case, because that wasn't the case then. And again, that's definitely not the case now. So again, I find it so interesting to go back and dig in and read through this. So let me go back. Let's see here. Matt LaRoche FinCEN set up shop in Ripple's office effectively for 3 years. You reckon Ripple are sweet? Of course they are. They know. They definitely know. The way they're building their business. If there was any issue, if they had any hesitance that it was a security, You know, the way they've built this out, the fact that Ripple is on Capitol Hill on a regular basis, helping to educate and pushing for regulatory clarity. Do you think they would be taking such an active role? Obviously, they are going out and you know, meeting people and definitely rubbing shoulders with all the right people. You know, but the point being is, you know, would Congress, you know, would they and the SEC, knowing that Ripple is taking an active role in helping to push for regulatory clarity, that Ripple is taking an active role in helping to educate people on the Token Taxonomy Act and trying to get people, those in Congress, our representatives, to truly understand digital assets, to understand investment. You know, so that's interesting. So again, we're obviously, all the pages don't get into this, but we haven't even got that far yet. And as we get into it, you know, it's amazing. So again, you know, we can take a lot of this reading. It is a year old, you know, so just take it with a grain of salt, you know. But let's see. Here, the XRP offered and sold by defendants have all the traditional hallmarks of a security. Does it? You know, they're making this statement. They make a huge statement here. This is a really, really bold statement because, in fact, it doesn't have all the hallmarks of a security. They might say that it has all the hallmarks of a security, but in fact, it doesn't have all the, because if it had all the hallmarks of a security, you wouldn't have to file a lawsuit. The SEC would have shut them down already. The SEC would have put them #1 target. Sir, we're going to get to 9 o'clock. Let's see if we can get that far. Legendary. I think if Ripple is worried, they wouldn't be expanding so massively. Exactly. If they were concerned, I mean, they would be lawyering up. This would have already come to, you know, this would have come to a head a long time ago. You know, so this is where I just thought it was so critical. And it was interesting because Andre Smith responded to a video I had made a little while back, brought it up. You know, he wasn't saying that XRP is a security, but this entire complaint, that's the whole purpose of this complaint. They're trying over $500. That's what's so insane about it. So those of you that are coming on and saying, why the hell is the HODL review coming out here and saying that XRP is a security? Well, because that's what this complaint says. You know, why can't I have the title of the video, XRP is a security, when that's exactly what we're talking about? You know, plus it brought a few people in here. You know, so honestly, expected to have more people coming in to say, what the hell? You know, you want to get some more people in here, tweet it out, and we'll see a few more people in here. So, let's see. Matt LaRoche, this law paper sounds as solid as Libra white paper. Needs perforations and to be rolled around a cardboard. So, you know, that's probably about what it's worth at this point. Let's see. Here we go. However, defendants did not register XRP with the SEC. And many of the representations defendants made regarding XRP were designed to drive demand of XRP, allowing defendants to obtain greater returns on their XRP sales. Really? Is that what did it? Is that what pushed the price of XRP at that point in time? From 260, they rode it all the way down to $1.70. You know what? Because it went up to 360, 370. What was the high? 380. I forget exactly what the height was. You know, I mean, at the time, in retrospect, you know, I was in it for the long haul. You know, I wish I would have sold at 380. You know, that would have been awesome. You know, and I rode it all the way back down. It was a nice roller coaster ride up and down. It was one what's that roller coaster that they crank you up slowly, but this was like fast. Let's say it kind of propels you, shoots you to the top. Then you get to the top and it shoots you to the bottom. That was kind of the experience. But, you know, look at this. They bought 650 XRP. 650. 650. You know, we're not talking about some massive sum. You didn't buy 100,000 XRP. And we're not talking about, you know, a big, massive loss. You know, for God's sake, you know, it's amazing. You know, and this is what, 384. That's right. So let's see here. Let's calculate this live. I can't do it in my head for some reason. So 650 XRP times, he bought it at 260, 1690. Okay? So 1690. And then what did he sell at? Is 650 XRP times 170 He sold at 11.05. So what do we have here? 1690 minus 11.05. He lost a total sum of $585. $585. That's what he lost. I mean, that's the catalyst to the lawsuit. To all of a sudden have this entire 43-page complaint written up over $585. $585. I mean, come on. That's absurd. You know, I've lost $585 in a day of trading on one stock. You know, and what do? You grin and bear it, and you turn around and you make another trade, and you hope the next one you're gonna make more. Maybe you'll lose 1,000, maybe you'll make 1,000. I don't know. You know, but if you're gonna trade, then you're gonna have to ride it up and down. You know, but come on, you know, it's crazy. 589. Oh, I didn't even think about that. XRP panic. Look at that. Nice. 589. Look at that. He almost lost 589. That would have been the ultimate. If it was 589, you know, come on. The guy didn't even make a plan. He should have planned it a little better. At least lost 589. That would have been great. Sure it wasn't 589. Maybe they're just adjusting. So, exactly. You can lose that on a bottle of scotch, right, Chip? You out there? I don't know if Chip's on. So, especially if you want to get the wick charts and your ups and downs because you're trading. But if you're in for the long haul, you know, if you're planning on you know, holding long term, you're a long term hold, you know, then in that case, you know, it's a little bit different. So, all right, let's go down in here. Let's see. All right, plaintiff is formed and believes and based thereon alleges that defendant XRP2 is a South Carolina LLC company with its principal place of business in San Francisco. So here they go. Here they are. Now they're going to go down all the defendants. So that's not so interesting. Plaintiff alleges on information and belief that does 110 inclusive or individuals. Blah blah blah. Okay, not so important. Jurisdiction and venue, not so important. Substantive allegations. XRP Genesis and the never-ending ICO. That should be the title of the movie. I think if there's ever a movie about Ripple and XRP, this is it right here. XRP Genesis and the never-ending ICO. I love it. I love the name of that movie. That would be great. So anyhow, so this is their next step. You know, unlike cryptocurrencies, and they go back and they're going to reiterate everything that we just talked about. As for the 80 billion, so here they are. They're talking about so what did they do with their 100 billion? 20 billion XRP. 20% of the total were given to the individual founders. The 80% 80 billion retained by Ripple Labs. And that 80 billion, obviously, you know, they've done quite a bit to develop a space. We're not talking about, you know, just making some minor changes. You know, they're making some major changes. You know, down 20,000 and didn't sell. Exactly, Richter. You know, that's the point. Long-term hold, if you're in it for the long term. The thing is, if you're investing money that you're okay, let's say, because it is speculative. I don't care, Bitcoin, Ethereum, XRP, it doesn't matter. You know, right now, you're in the beginning stages, you're in the infancy of this digital asset space. If you were investing in the tech boom of the 90s, you would be facing a very similar type of scenario, investing in things you don't know what the outcome is. But here we are, you know, this is where we're at. And, you know, you're expecting much better things because as you look into, you know, you look into the space, you look into the development of the space, we know this space is going places. You see the millions upon millions of dollars that are being invested by major financial institutions into this space. MoneyGram's on fire, you know, right now. You see how their stock price changed once the announcement of Ripple came out. Their stock price weren't doing so well until that investment, until that tie-up. So let's see here. 19th August was 589 days from all-time high yesterday. XRP bananas with some 589 trivia. Interesting. All right, let's see. XRP Carolina, strong hands. All right, legendary. Are we sure the plaintiff isn't some project gone wrong of a law school student? And that could be too. Who knows? That would be interesting to dig into. Because this is insane. I mean, this is a nice kind of like who's who. If you dig through it, you want to go back and get a quick historical lesson. From 2013 to present, defendants have been engaged in an ongoing scheme to sell XRP to the general public in their never-ending ICO. Okay, come on. All right, now, 2015, regulatory authorities in the U.S. fined Ripple Labs and XRP $700,000 for violating the Bank Secrecy Act by selling XRP without obtaining the required authorization. They acknowledged they sold XRP to the general public, agreed to a number of remedial measures. There you go. They registered. But that's what happens. That's the insanity of a like this also, is that if the rules haven't been completely identified yet because there's a lack of regulatory clarity by the government. The SEC is trying to operate on laws that were written in 1933 and 1934. So they're trying to apply the Howey test, which was from 1947. You have the Internal Revenue Code from 1986. So it's crazy, all this stuff. So obviously they go down and they talk circulation. They talk about their primary source of income, touting current XRapid XVIA. Obviously those hadn't even launched yet. It was still all about XCurrent rolling out. XRapid and XVIA hadn't even come close to launching at that point. We're talking about a year ago, so it all happened fairly short time after that, but they're also making their claims based on their losses in 2018, so it's just crazy. You dig into this and you go down. Defendants market XRP to drive demand and increase price. Conference name Swell. Okay. It just gets out of hand, when you see, the information that they pump into this thing. So that's where at the end of the day, and again, I guess the case hasn't been settled, but as you read through, this, obviously, there's definitely some very loose, points that were being made with this. So anyhow, I don't know. We could dig down through this, for a long time. It's coming up on an hour. I thought it was important to dig into this, to bring it out, to really go through it, and show it. Obviously there's enough information, enough evidence. You guys can do your own research on it, figure out where we are today. We've discussed this on previous videos, where we think we are with Ripple, RippleNet, with XRP, etc. But again, I think it's important as you go through this to really learn and understand the dynamics, of each of these spaces and what we're getting into, and what some of the others are saying about it, including where the court case may or may not be going. So that's it. It's just crazy. So let me go back to the chat here. Let's see where we're at. Let's see. XRP Carolina. Oh no, who said dollar cost averaging? Matt Richter. There we go. I'm glad I was able to dollar cost average. Yep, and that's good. I mean, you think about it. You think about long term, and I had a whole video on this also. Aaron Vallette just came in you saw the title. Anything to worry about? No, we're discussing the complaint that was filed by Ryan Coffey a year ago. It might be a little late, giving this to you, updating. But it was filed back in June of 18. Just going in, that was very specific on what they were, what they were talking about. So I missed that comment earlier when we were going through it. I saw these others. So let's see. It's probably Mr. Vase behind it. That'd be interesting. Aaron, the Army's trying to tame the Wild West. May take some time with lawsuits to be had to set the precedents, and that's a great point too. So as these lawsuits get settled, in a space with a lack of regulatory clarity, the cases do begin to set precedent. So gaming crypto, I don't think a lawsuit over $589-ish is going to solve anything. Definitely isn't. Definitely didn't. Because what in the world is this guy going to do? What's the point? What's he going to get out of it? Unless he is someone in early on said he's a Bitcoin maxi. And maybe he is, maybe he wasn't. I think he was just bitter because like Gaming Crypto just said, he lost $589. Probably couldn't afford to lose it, lost it, got himself into a little bit of a bind. And you know what? That's how you learn. But he went and ran off and filed a lawsuit. And then as you pull it up, there's actually 4 other complaints in the overall complaint as you go down. So we won't get into those, but it is an hour. I appreciate all you guys being on. I'll be back on Wednesday. The topic I had planned on talking about tonight was actually, tracking stolen digital asset, tracking stolen Bitcoin. Can you track it? Are there organizations in place now, developing now, that allow the tracking of stolen cryptocurrency, digital asset, and start preventing fraud that takes place? That's what we're going to talk about on Wednesday. Look forward to seeing you guys then. Until then, tune in tomorrow night, and you guys will see the XRP Minute with Chip right here in this spot, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and I'll check you guys out on Wednesday.